35192. Want to send a text. Cavs play tonight. A little over an hour away. Your tip-off in D.C. against the Wizards. 7 o'clock. We'll roll out of here at 6:30. Get one last keyword for you to go fund yourself. And then right into Cavs Live pregame. Kyrie Irving dealt to the Dallas Mavericks for, it was one name I recognized.
Spencer Dinwiddie?
Dinwiddie, yeah. And although the story I enjoyed more was that the guy who owns the Nets, out of spite, wouldn't deal Kyrie to the Lakers, which is where he wanted to go, obviously. If you're not going to play in New York, I'm going to play in L.A. But I couldn't imagine that LeBron would really want to have Kyrie back in the mix.
No, he's for it.
Was he for it? Okay.
I mean, things have been pretty bleak there. He's going to
it's
Kyrie over Russell Westbrook at this point.
Desperate times require desperate.
Mm-hmm.
So, so Kyrie goes to the Dallas Mavericks, and the Mavs got a whole bunch of stuff in return.
And they haven't even made the deal official yet. I just read something on Twitter that the Raptors might get in on it and make it a 3-team deal. So,
well, there you go.
We'll see what happens.
So it's going to be Kyrie and Luka Doncic there in Dallas. Spencer Dinwiddie is who the Nets get. Dorian Finney-Smith, a first-round pick in 2029, and second-round picks in 27 and 29. So, anyway, he's Dallas's problem now, right. I guess.
Kyrie
Although a terrible place to send a flat earther, because you look around and you go, yeah, I knew I was right.
Mm-hmm. But as I say, he might fit in real good in Texas.
Tejas.
Some of his beliefs. But Kyrie seems like that person on social media that's always got a new significant other. And then, like, they're so in love. They're so in love.
Oh, yeah?
So happy. And then after a few weeks, they're like, if you guys know this person, they're the biggest piece of garbage, blah. Like, we all know people like that where we just kind of watch them to see their toxic cycle just continue over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That seems to be
anybody that people knew. Was he dating anyone famous?
No, I'm saying like that's
a type of person.
That's the type of person he
analogy.
is. Where
I see. Yeah. Oh, he is that person.
He's that type of person.
Gotcha.
Where it's always grass is always greener, or like they're always swearing off love. I'll never be in love again. And then they get into a new relationship and love's the best thing ever. And then after a few weeks or months, it's all back to the drawing board.
I mean, at some point, reality has to come crashing around you, and so maybe this is the environment that he kind of calms down in.
Nah, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think he's a selfish dude, and I mean, if he focuses and plays, I think that's a great duo. I think they can play really well together. They're both pretty ball dominant, but I think Kyrie can coexist with that because he's done it with LeBron, he's done it with KD. And Luka's just such a good playmaker, too. I think they could be a very, very good team. But Kyrie just, he doesn't seem all that focused on just basketball these days.
Well, and there's guys there you can have fun with. You're going to have fun with Jason Kidd. You're going to have fun with Derek Harper. I mean, these are guys.
Jason Kidd's the coach.
These are guys that are just Dirk Nowitzki. These are guys that are super fun to play with. And so when Kyrie goes... when Kyrie goes, listen, Jason Terry and I get along famously. That's going to be fun for him. Maybe that's the environment he needs. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has deployed the National Guard to the east side of the state. I don't know if you've watched any of the footage from that train derailment.
Yeah. That's crazy and sad.
This is a town near the PA border. It's called East Palestine, Ohio. This is not a wealthy part of the state.
East Palestine.
Bum, bum, bum.
Your air quality ain't so good.
No, good. So, huge, massive derailment of hazardous materials. Derailed on Friday. This is a town where they told everybody to get out because, but again, these aren't people particularly of means, that can go get in a hotel for a week or whatever. Yeah. So they had this huge evacuation zone that was like a 2-mile area around the town because they said that the toxic cargo on this train that people could face severe injury, skin burns, lung damage. It was carrying vinyl chloride.
Oh, God.
Which, by the way, at any given time, there are trains going through towns that have this kind of stuff. And 9 times out of 10, you don't know because they don't crash. When they do,
It's not good.
it's not good. So they were worried that the whole thing was going to explode, which would then disperse toxic fumes into the air, shoot shrapnel miles away. And so they did some controlled release, I guess, this afternoon maybe. But the thing had been burning all weekend. And if you've seen any footage of it, it's just awful. He said it's not clear when residents will be able to return to their homes. The cars derailed on Friday. So they said there's a high probability of toxic gas release in and around East Palestine, which, again, if you live there, sucks. Because even when you get to move back, when they go, everything's fine, you know, they measure the air quality or whatever. But imagine if the water supply gets contaminated. If they go, the air quality's okay. I mean, obviously they check the water too, but you get the EPA out there. It's a huge derailment. East Palestine is not a big town. It's about 5,000 people. But it's right on the PA border. And so, obviously, people who live in Pittsburgh and places like that are nervous, too, to be potentially downwind. But they told a lot of the people there in East Palestine that they should leave. Told most of them. And
I've been telling them that for years.
They had about 500 people, as you will, who said, I ain't leaving. It's all false flag. I don't know if that's what they said, but you're going to have people that don't want to leave.
Hey, Mr. Cox. This is Pete from Pittsburgh. Question for you guys. Have you ever heard of a jitney driver? I recently started driving with Lyft and asked a customer, do you remember jitney drivers? You know, someone that drive you around town for $5. Or across the state for the same price. I miss those days. Hate the show. Keep up the mediocre work.
Did you guys have jitneys here?
I've never heard of that.
When I lived in New York, I would use them from time to time.
I only learned about them when I moved to Pennsylvania. That there were people, it was basically a precursor to ride shares.
Yeah.
They were like unofficial ride shares. It'd be like a guy in a car, somebody'd have a number, and he'd have like a license or something, and you'd be like, hey.
That's how I'd get to the airport when I lived in
give me $10
New York, because it was the cheapest way to get there, and like you just kind of had to know somebody.
Yes.
And there was a bunch of comics that lived in this one neighborhood, and they go, okay, call this number and set up a ride, and you can get picked up and
like
take
a
it to the
drug
airport.
deal.
I mean, yeah,
I got a guy.
It's just word of mouth.
Yeah.
Before you had apps on your phone. So it worked.
Right.
It was way cheaper because this is 15 years ago, but it still cost $40 to get to the airport back then.
Yeah, they're not super uncommon, but I associate them, like he said, he's in Pittsburgh. I associate them with Pittsburgh. There was a famous playwright or an author or something in Pittsburgh, August Wilson. He wrote this play called Jitney, and that was where a lot of people. But I think when I was in Seattle, they had them too. But I had never heard of them here, and I'd never heard of them in Illinois. But he's out there driving for Lyft now. Modern day Jitney driver. We're talking about how the Seinfeld, that chat bot, or whoever created the AI over on the Twitch channel that was creating a Seinfeld episode that would just roll and they would just fill it up with AI dialogue, whatever, was taken down because it went the way that those things go, which is they become super racist or whatever. Somebody asked AI to predict the future of Cleveland.
All right, Mayor Pound Cake.
All right, let's do it.
Wait, what's going on?
Just see
We're
Rob before the
wondering
show
if
tomorrow.
Mayor Pound Cake is in the offing here for, you got a lot to live up to.
Cleveland is perceived to be the butthole of the world sometime, right?
I think people will much prefer a pound cake over a butthole.
Shades of difference. Hey, Shayna.
Hi.
Hi.
So I was listening to the radio. You guys were talking about that train derailment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And about the contamination and everything like that. And I'm wondering if you all have ever seen that movie about the DuPont company. I think it's called The Company That Poisoned the World. and it talks about how the chemicals and things of that nature seeped into the groundwater, and basically the entire world is poisoned with this chemical, that the only way that they couldn't find it in anybody's bodies was to dig up veterans from World War II and beyond. So basically we all have this chemical in our body, and the fact that this train and the chemicals and things of that nature, I mean, the repercussions of that, no one could even estimate.
Yeah, there was a. I remember that
sounds like people just wanted to dig up some old bodies.
some people, you can't stop them from digging up corpses. They're like, come on. No, I remember the documentary you were talking about was called The Devil We Know. And then they made like a fictionalized version of it with Mark Ruffalo a couple of years ago. And so it was called Dark Waters. It was real good. I don't know that anybody saw it.
Thank you.
Those environmental movies are kind of tough for people. There was one with Krasinski and Matt Damon, and you know, some people aren't into that stuff. But the dramatization of it was pretty intense.
I liked it when it was called The Rock.
Nope.
The VX Gas?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Rock with Sean Connery and Ed Harris.
That's kind of what that movie was.
Yep. But
that is a damn good movie.
yeah, good movie. Okay, thank you. There's Shayna in Youngstown.
Actually, doesn't hold up as much as you think it would.
No, The Rock's pretty cheesy.
It's real cheesy.
Yeah.
Well, it goes in and out of super serious and then real cheesy. And then it gets to a point where you're like, spoiler alert for this 30-year-old movie, when they're like, we weren't really going to release the gas. It was all kind of, we were just kids.
It's a goof.
Yeah, we wanted some money, and then you said, and we're like, we're not going to really release the gas. So it's all kind of for nothing.
That was Pete Connery and Cage, though.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I want to say Pete Connery, but
you don't think so?
that was his renaissance, I'd say. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that's his peak.
Huh.
His peak was...
I heard Pete, and I was like, I thought Sean was in that movie.
Yeah.
Pete
I
Moss?
don't know who Pete Connery is, but
You think
I've been
Medicine
wrong the
Man
whole
is more
time.
Pete Connery?
No, I would say Pete
I
Connery.
discovered the cure for cancer and I lost it. That one? With Elaine
I
Bracco?
would say his peak would be more James Bond era.
The 60s?
Yes, that would be his peak.
So everything after that was the downside of Sean Connery's career? I think his peak was a Barbara Walters interview where he said if a bitch gets out of line, you smack her.
If she's that's right. I would say,
Paraphrasing, of course, but...
I would, because, I mean, it's a gradual decline, but he maybe had a couple peaks.
all right. Well, in any
Zardoz
career,
definitely
there's
wasn't a
peaks and
peak.
valleys.
That's all I'm saying.
Ebbs and flows.
Zardoz was not a peak.
Anyway, chatbot AI predicts the future of Cleveland. And it all comes down to one thing, as you might have already anticipated, water. I'm going to read this to you as the AI kicked out the future of Cleveland. In 2050, after the devastating effects of World War III,
After LeBron leaves for the sixth time.
a.k.a. World War III, the world was left to pick up the pieces and rebuild. The population of many cities had decreased drastically, and people were searching for safer, more secure places to call home. Cleveland, a city known for its resilience and resourcefulness, emerged as one of the few cities that not only survived the war, but thrived in its aftermath. As people flocked to Cleveland in search of a new start, the city's population grew at an unprecedented rate. See, this is all it takes, World War III,
Come on.
to get Cleveland back on its feet.
no more mistake on the lake after this.
The city's economy boomed with new businesses and industries springing up to meet the demands of the growing population. Cleveland's strategic location with its access to major waterways and transportation routes made it an attractive destination for trade and commerce. So basically kicked us back to the 60s. It overtook other cities in size and importance, becoming the largest city in America by 2050. The city was a beacon of hope in a world that had been devastated by war. Where's this coming from? And showed that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, anything was possible. It sounds like all they did was they fed Cleveland tourism videos into the artificial intelligence, just kicked back all of the adjectives. People from all over the world came to Cleveland to see a city that had risen from the ashes of war and become a symbol of hope and resilience.
No longer a factory of sadness. It's now a factory of hope.
That's right. A symbol of hope. Cleveland's story inspired others and showed that no matter how bad things may seem, there's always the
always next year.
possibility of a brighter future. That's what the AI chatbot kicked out. Yeah, this is why I don't worry about writers and other, being overrun with AI. Everybody's going to be put out of work. This thing writes like a freshman year book report on a book you didn't read. But there it is. And we've talked about this, once the water wars start out west, this is what it's going to be. We're going to be getting climate refugees out this way. That's why you started to see, I assume, more and more and more people on social media on the West Coast or in Arizona going, why can't they just pump water from the Great Lakes? As though we wouldn't notice.
Oh, it's ours.
I was going to say, we're only a foot deep here in Lake Erie.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's illegal for one. I mean, the Great Lakes are technically international waters because we share them with Canada. So
A little money would fix all that.
how so? You're going to pay Canada?
No.
See, Canada's smart.
they-
We are not. We never came up with like a water policy. Canada has a water policy. We don't. We're like, whatever. We'll figure it out.
Like, I don't know, give it to Arizona.
Right. So
We
like
don't need
California never developed a water policy. They're like, we'll find water. So the water wars are technically here, right? Places where the water's going away, it's going to get real gross real fast. Like you look at a place like Israel, 90% of their wastewater they recycle. So they got the conservation thing figured out. You can't just pipe water. You can't use the Great Lakes, put a giant straw in them and send it out to Arizona and California.
But Israel is on the ocean or is on a sea, right?
So is California.
Oh.
But they can't, the desalination is so prohibitively expensive for residences. Companies might be able to pay and do it, but, people aren't going to be willing to spend $400 a month on their water bill.
I was going to say, Israel only has 6 million people, and plus California. It's
I just think over the next 10, 15 years, things are going to get real weird in this part of the country. Real weird. They asked, they did something, it was in Cleveland scene, they asked Ohioans, where would you like to move if you couldn't live in Ohio? And the vast majority of them said Florida, of course, the Ohio of the South. So you just trade one whatever for another whatever. You're going to have a hell of a lot more people going the other way.
So, Alan, if you couldn't pick Florida.
No, you
And
can
you
pick
can't-
Florida.
I could pick Florida.
Okay, well, if you couldn't pick Chicago or anywhere in Illinois, where would you go other than Ohio?
I don't know. It would have to be strategic. I mean, where are you going to go? Back in the day, I would, because I love California. I love Texas. I love Colorado. Those places are all going to be.
I feel like the only place cheaper than Ohio is Indiana. I feel like
West
Indiana's
Virginia?
well, the closest that we have to our state. If you want the same.
So you're just trying to go just straight cheapest?
Well, because my mom's still around here, so I want to be within driving distance. Pennsylvania might be Pittsburgh is probably more expensive. Philadelphia is definitely more expensive. So I'm thinking
Anywhere's driving
Indianapolis,
distance if you have the time.
but I don't have the time.
He's busy.
He is busy. I've got